Ashley, just let me know when you're ready. Okay.
Hey, Tom, can you hear us? Tom, can you hear us?
All right, we ready? Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order. And Keith, you have the first item on the agenda, GP 2110, the Gilmore, and Z 2116.
All right, there it is. Chair Simon, members of the commission, good evening. Oh, no worries. Yeah, Hannah's on TV, you can tell her. I could talk about that Ramada in the background and the rocks on the ground and the riprap and stuff.
Any jokes, Noah?
Sweet. You got it. Thanks, Ashley. And I can't remember your name. I'm sorry. Isaac. Man, I'll remember one day. Sorry, Isaac. So, Chair Simon, members of the commission, my first study session case before you tonight is for the Gilmore. Where's my little clicker? I don't think I have it. I could have been finding the clicker this whole time. I apologize.
We do have new name takes tonight. Just everybody just wants you to know we have something going for us tonight. The new name tags.
Let's try this again. So my first project before you tonight is the Gilmore. The project site, as you can see on the screen in front of you, is located at the northwest corner of Val Vista Drive and Germain Road, and you can see it's highlighted there. The site is approximately 40 acres in size, and I will talk a little bit about the GP and the rezone here in just a second, but I wanted to give you this context. It's just south of the hospital area, Mercy Gilbert Hospital, as you know. So the input on this study session that we're requesting tonight is concerning the proposed general plan amendment and the proposed PAD rezone and the deviations that the applicant is requesting. So as you can see on the site in front of you, they're proposing a general plan amendment from regional commercial. First of all, there's regional commercial over the whole site right now. So they are proposing to change that red piece up in the corner, which is about 7.8 or 7.9 acres or so, from regional commercial to residential, 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre general plan designation. Now the rest of the site, the rest of the 32-ish acres that's in white, will remain the same at regional commercial, and that general plan designation will not be changing. So the zoning on the site, that little red piece that I showed you on the last slide, that will be changed. They're proposing to change it to multifamily high residential with a density range of about, I'm still trying to get final numbers on this and get them to provide these calculations. But it's going to be a little over 30 dwelling units per acre, I believe, just for that one piece. But I'll still have to provide more clarification on that and final numbers and when it comes back for public hearing. But the rest of the site is already, it's zoned regional commercial, and they're not proposing to change the zoning, but they are changing it from regional commercial conventional to regional commercial with a PAD for the rest of the site. So here's the proposed development plan. So a total of 40 acres, the whole development, with 206,000 approximately square feet of commercial, and I broke it down for you, 65,000 square feet for a grocery store, 33,000 square feet for retail below residential, so that's the loft above type product that we have that's in the site, and you can see that is over, you probably can't see where I'm pointing on your little screen thingy, but that's kind of wrapping the MFH is in that far northwest corner, so it's everything kind of in front of it, and you can see where it says 4-story residential retail. So that's where the retail is in the loft above. And then you have 24,880 square feet of standalone shop space. And then there's this piece behind the grocery store. It says office 2-story. They're going to make that more general so they have more flexibility as far as the use is concerned because they don't know what that is yet. But that's 2.7 acres of land for some future type of, some type of commercial office type development which they'll lock down at a later date. And then the total residential units on the site there's 302 units in that northwest corner, as I've already stated. They have 4-story apartment buildings in that northwest corner. And then in front of that to the east and a little bit to the south of that, they have the loft above residential, and those are also 4-story buildings with retail on the ground floor and, of course, residential on the top 3 floors. And as far as parking totals on the site, that's going to be more design review level stuff, but they have approximately 1,300 parking spaces, where a little over 1,000 parking spaces are required by the code if you break down all the uses. So that is the development plan. So moving on to the rest of the presentation, I wanted to show you these site renderings that the applicant graciously provided that shows kind of a nice little perspective view of what this development could look like, given the building configurations and locations. So here's one view looking straight west from up in the sky there from Val Vista. You can see that center boulevard or drive aisle that goes down the middle, and then it feeds the retail with park space around it, as you can see on this last plan. And then you have those green areas that are yard spaces that are open space, but you can't necessarily see that in this rendering. So maybe the next one you can kind of see them a little bit, those green spaces. But here's more a rendering that would kind of show it from that that northeast corner that shows the loft above residential in that L-shaped area, and then you also have the MFH behind it. And there's actually kind of, I didn't show you on this slide, but if you see on this first rendering, you can see that vehicles can drive underneath the loft above building from that northernmost site entrance. It's kind of hard to see it in here, but they can drive right underneath the building, which is kind of a cool feature. And then the last rendering here kind of shows a more general overview of the whole kind of area around it. And you can see this from this site from a different angle, looking at that corner of Germain and Val Vista and how that grocery store anchor would work and things in with the site. So I just wanted to show you those pretty pictures. So as far as the zoning is concerned, the applicant is proposing a few deviations. So for the regional commercial deviations, I decided to talk about those first. They have front setback deviations from 25 to 15 along Val Vista. Along Melrose Street, they want a deviation of 7 feet to down to 13 from 20. Along Courts, the same thing, which Courts is to the far west side of the site. And then the landscape deviations are the same as basically the building setback deviations. A couple additional deviations here that I wanted to point out, or one other, is adjoining the MFH, the regional commercial, to the MFH. They are proposing a 0-foot setback, and then, which makes sense. And then they're also proposing a deviation to reduce the total amount of landscape area from 40 to 32%. For the proposed multifamily high deviations, you will also see some of the same setback type deviations as well. Front setbacks along Courts and Melrose, or side along Melrose, and then some also the separation between buildings, 10 feet, and then also that interior setback of 0 to adjacent to the multifamily high. Or to in this case, the RC piece. And then they have a few deviations for private open space from 60 down to 50, and then also that same deviation of the common open space area from 40 down to 32%. So before I go into public participation, just wanted to talk a little bit about the deviations. So town staff, I'll break down a few of them. So first is the building landscapes and landscape setback deviations along those frontages. Town staff does support the 0-foot setback in between the MFH and the RC down to 0. But what we don't support is the request to reduce building and landscape setbacks along Val Vista Drive, which is a major arterial road within the town that requires a 25-foot landscape setback, which is highly necessary to minimize the impacts of high traffic volumes along that road, and which will also, in this landscape setback being wider, will enhance the street frontage and views into the development from Val Vista Drive. The proposed 15 feet is just not wide enough within which to plant an adequate level of landscaping and to allow full growth of that landscaping, and especially the trees. 15 feet is just not wide enough for a lot of trees to survive in that environment. Also note that all properties further north and south of the subject site, on both sides of Val Vista Drive, all the way to the hospital, both sides of the road, have been developed to comply with the required 25-foot landscape setback. So town staff does not feel that is a deviation that we can support. Town staff does also not support reducing landscape and the building setback along Melrose Street, as it would be relaxed by 7 feet down to 13 feet, as this will place the proposed one-story garages closer to the property line. We're concerned that the garage buildings, which don't typically have the level of quality of design as an actual residential building itself, that those buildings would dominate the streetscape and kind of have a negative impact on that streetscape, and also providing a much narrow space or area within which to plant an adequate level of landscaping. So, forgot I don't need to do that yet. The next deviation I wanted to talk about, and that's not actually in your chart, is at the corner. I guess I can show you this slide. So at the corner of Val Vista and Germain, of the project, the applicant is requesting to deviate from the required 50-foot by 250-foot landscape setback. They want to reduce that landscape setback, I think, to about 150 feet, if I'm not mistaken, along Germain instead of 250 feet. The width would still be there. But staff does not support this modification as well, as the intersection of Alvista Drive and Germain is a primary intersection in the town where that 50 by 250 is necessary to create a high quality street presence at a very busy intersection to minimize negative impacts to the public and minimize negative impacts to the proposed development itself. So in addition, if you notice, the public self-storage at the southwest corner has the 50 by 250. We just approved a Circle K caddy corner, or kitty corner, however you want to say it, from this site that also has the 50 by 250. And so in order to remain consistent with the landscape setbacks at the corner that are provided in not only at this corner, but on many corners throughout the town, town staff believes that 50 by 250 should be met and that the applicant can make adjustments to their design. Then there's one other setback that's not in the table either. It's just hard to put these things in the table is, and you may have noticed it in your narrative, but the applicant is requesting to reduce the number of landscape islands in the parking lot. The code requires 8 parking spaces, and then you have to have a landscape island. The applicant is proposing to have 12 parking spaces and then a landscape island, which reduces the number of landscaping you can have in a parking area, and town staff is not supportive of that. In your staff report, it states that this is a standard that is not eligible for deviation. However, we've done a little more research on that and consulted with our town attorney, and we have determined that the language in the LDC, since it's not super clear on that is actually a deviation that is eligible for an applicant to request through a PAD or through a variance. So given that said, the town staff is still not in support of that deviation request, as it would increase the amount of asphalt in the parking area and the urban heat. It would impact urban heat island effects on the site. It also reduces the amount of landscaping / open space that they can have, and they're already requesting 32%, which is below the 40%. And it reduces the amount of shade opportunities for parking for vehicles that are parked in that parking lot, and that becomes extremely important here in Arizona and with our extremely hot summers. So we want that beautification of that parking lot. So reducing the number of landscape islands and adding more asphalt is a negative thing to town staff that we will not support. One thing that we will support is a reduction in the private and common open space down to 32%, and also the private open space from 60 down to 50. We think that that's an appropriate request, given the amenities that the existing design of the site and the unique loft above concept. We feel that there's enough unique elements that we can support that deviation, but there's obviously there's a lot of deviations that we don't feel comfortable in supporting. So back to public participation. They had a virtual neighborhood meeting on September 2nd. 3 surrounding property owners attended. The attendees expressed support for the mixed-use design, the outdoor areas, restaurants, and things. They really liked the concept of the project. They asked questions about traffic. That's pretty much on almost every project like this. They talked about the residential, the loft residential by right, of course, and then also the site's current RC zoning and the overlay, and I believe they also talked about some of the deviations and things like that as well. So that's just a brief overview of citizen input. So as requested, we would love to get your feedback on the general plan amendment that's proposed in that northwest corner, and also on the proposed rezone to a PAD for the RC piece, and we would love to get your input on the deviations. So that concludes my presentation. I'm open for questions, and if you want to ask the applicant, Adam Baugh is here tonight representing the Thompson Thrift Development Company, and he can answer questions as well that I can't answer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith.
Yep.
Anybody have questions for Keith? You want to start it off? Yeah, Commissioner Bianchi.
Thank you, Chairman. So Keith, the only question I had was, so in that reduction of the landscaping islands from 8 to 12 spaces, is that in specific areas between multifamily, or is that through the entire site or the whole 40 acres in the PAD?
Chair Simon, Commissioner Bianchi, If I'm not mistaken, because they're creating a PAD for MFH PAD and the RC one big PAD, it's for the entire 40 acres, if I'm not mistaken. And Mr. Bach can confirm that if he'd like, but I believe that that's what it is. It's for every parking area on the whole 40 acres.
Right. Any other questions? Commissioner Fay.
Yes. So Keith, this worked out well for you because I downloaded these on Friday
Sweet.
and was going over them on the weekend. And for some reason, this one, every time I got to tab 3, it crashed.
Oh no.
Which, as you know very well, once I get to the site plan is when I'm picking up the phone and making your life horrible over the weekend. But so I didn't actually get to the site plan today. But actually, it's on the same point, which I read very differently, and I kind of still do. The parking islands, because the site plans I see already have the parking islands pretty far spaced. So I don't know that the way that they're describing it, and maybe the applicant can correct, if that right now the 32% open space, which I am not okay with, by the way, I think that the spaced out parking islands is already accommodated in that number. I don't think, if we were to approve this, I don't think it would result in a greater reduction of the open space than is already there. Anyway, that's my take, but I could be wrong because, again, I didn't drill into this on this particular one the way that I usually do.
Chair Simon, Commissioner Fay, I believe that's correct. I misspoke earlier where I said it could result in less percentage of landscaping. I believe you are correct. I believe the current development plan with the islands and their current locations and the spacing that they're proposing, all of that together is 32%.
My guess is if we were to recalculate it with parking islands every 8 spots, you'd be talking about a difference of 0.1%. So it wouldn't make the difference, but I don't think it will make things worse either.
Okay.
All right.
That's the end of questions, or at some point we can ask for input, or is that?
Yeah, no, we can go that as well. Yeah, input or questions, I guess, at this point. I do have a question for you, Keith, with regards to the parking, and I guess my thought is around the fact that we're looking at high-density multifamily in the northwest corner of this, plus multi-use, which I would assume is high-density, 4-story, kind of in the center of it. The applicant is offering an additional, what looks like about 300 parking spaces based on the plat design that they've given us. With the usage, my thought process goes to, with these yards and whatnot that they've got there, my thought process kind of goes to that there could be potentially a lot of night use for this, or a draw with regards to an entertainment type district. So we're going to get a lot of additional parking in addition to the residents that are living there. So I can see a need for having that additional parking, and I really do commend the applicant for, I think, probably thinking forward on that. I'm guessing we probably have a similar thought process there. The other thing that I've not heard or seen much here in Gilbert is that with the need for the parking islands to be so close together, I feel like sometimes we push out the ability to do shade structures rather than trees, which then shade structures could potentially be conducive to solar paneling, alternative electricity, which then potentially could help the facilities that are there. So I don't know that I'm necessarily against what they're throwing down here from a perspective of I can see the need for additional parking. So I think from that perspective, I actually like what I see. So I guess question that I have for you is do we consider that? I mean, do we take that in consideration and maybe have that conversation with the applicant that, hey, could we maybe throw in some parking structure, keep the distance that we've got, but is there ability to throw some structure there?
Chairman Simon, members of the commission, yeah, that's I mean, you bring up some good points with parking structures and things. We haven't thought about that. Maybe that's a conversation we can have with the applicant. We're open to potentially having that discussion with them. But we are still concerned with increasing the amount of asphalt and having less parking, less islands or trees in the parking lot than we would normally have under our current code. And we don't want to set a precedent for future developments in the area or in the town to follow, we feel that 8 is an appropriate number, and that it provides enough tree and shade coverage for parking lots, especially in with the Arizona summers that we have and the heat. Everyone wants to park underneath a tree, and if you reduce that tree count, it doesn't provide for that opportunity, and it's also about parking lot beautification. A sea of parking without a lot of trees is just it's not very aesthetically pleasing. So we get into those concerns as well. But we can also have some of those conversations with the applicant about shade structures, and I understand where you're coming from. It could reduce the opportunity to have shade structures, but we'd rather have trees.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess maybe push back a little if I may, from a perspective of, I feel like I understand the premise behind the trees, and I understand not wanting too much asphalt. I get it. But I feel like maybe it's the opportunity with some of this multi-use type development that we do look at alternatives to just planting trees, which then once we get the trees and we approve it, we look at the trees, we say, yep, they go. A couple years down the road, we get a monsoon or a haboob come through and knock the trees down, and then it takes the occupant 5 years to put another tree there. It takes 7 years to grow, and now we don't have our shade for 10 years. So, I mean, I'm kind of pushing back, not, just, I guess being a little bit devil's advocate there. So,
sure, I understand what you're saying.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Yeah, Commissioner Anderson.
Keith, thank you for the presentation. Just 2 questions for you. On the private open space reduction from 60 to 50 square feet, are they still going to maintain the 6-foot minimum depth of those spaces?
Chair Simon, Commissioner Anderson, I don't have that answer yet, as we don't have that level of detail.
Okay.
That's something that maybe Adam Baugh could answer. I don't know if he knows that at this point, since they haven't done a lot of that. Maybe they haven't done a lot of that design in detail, but maybe Adam can answer that question. But I don't know that answer. I'd have to defer to Adam Baugh.
They will maintain the 6 feet minimum?
I'm sorry, Mr. Baugh, we'll need to get you on a mic.
Every time I grab a microphone, I want to start rapping. Please don't. Yes, there'll still be the minimum 10-foot depth, and it's not going to apply to all the units. It's only a handful of units, but if it's just one, I still got to ask for a deviation. The parking lot islands that we are going to install are actually 9 feet wide, not what the minimum requirements per code. So while we have less per ratio, they're actually wider islands. And I think some of our numbers can be refined a little further by the time we come back and present to the committee.
Okay, I would just like a little bit more clarification, just to I think every unit should maintain that 6-foot minimum depth. Otherwise, those patios and balconies are just not going to be very that usable.
They will.
Okay, and then the second question I have is regarding the garages. So correct me if I'm wrong, Keith. I think LDC is you provide 1 covered space per unit, and then 25% of that is a enclosed unit or a garage. So if I'm looking at the document here on page 5, they're providing 55 parking spaces, and if my math does right, they're short about 21 spaces. Are they requesting a deviation from that?
Chair Simon, Commissioner Anderson, I'm not aware that they're asking for that deviation, but we can definitely check those numbers again to make sure that they are meeting that standard.
Okay. So that was just the other thing that I noticed. Thank you.
Yep.
Comments or questions? Commissioner Bianchi.
Thank you, Chair. I think as overall comments, I definitely understand the residential requests and the RC zoning kind of being broken out here. I think it's good to see some additional retail south of the freeway to kind of serve that area as well. It's a mixed use plan, but it just on the surface as we see it, it just kind of looks like a sea of surface parking, kind of the chairman's point. I would like to I may delve into the site plan and the DR a little bit, but I'd probably prefer to see some more pedestrian connectivity between the residential and the commercial uses. The other thing is for the retail pads kind of facing the arterials and kind of fronting the parking lots, also included with the deviation requests. I have some concerns with the secondary exits and the doors and where they'd be located, especially when we talk about trash and refuse and deliveries and how those would be orientated. And could that be handled? Because I know their goal is to try to provide that close-in parking. So I'm curious to see how that's going to be addressed as we work through this. And based on the calcs, I'd probably prefer to see the open space percentages or the requested reduction in the parking islands and landscaping addressed. I'm not going to probably be in favor of granting deviations to both of those. But I kind of do look forward to the DR materials to kind of get a better understanding of the site plan. But those are my thoughts. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? Anybody? No? Commissioner Fay.
My comments are pretty similar in some ways to Mr. Bianchi's. I'm not the private open space. I'm not terribly concerned about but the overall open space and the setback, particularly the major right-of-way setbacks, it's a pretty heavy lift to get there from here, in my opinion. My gut tells me there's enough space here to make it work. What you've got, there's the seas of parking spaces does kind of sound like a description. And the answer is not to just make every parking space 4 inches narrower and pack it all in. But my instinct tells me when the civils get down to their CAD drawings, they should be able to find the space here and still get full open space, which I don't think is, I think that's definitely something fair for us to focus on overall. One of the points, when you space out the parking islands further, the shade structure, one of the things that happens is you encourage the ability it becomes a more flexible space. The subsequent owners down the road are more likely to fence things off. You can park bigger vehicles. You could have festivals and stuff. That might be a good thing. That also might be a negative thing. I've seen it used as material storage all of a sudden and things that we didn't anticipate. So in a way, it's kind of like to cars what those, like the airport, the seats at the airport where they put the armrest so you can't lay down. They kind of serve a function like that. Parking spaces. The deviations are I think they're all associated with the iridium, parking islands, right-of-way setback. Okay, I covered. Overall, I'm a fan of residential over retail. I wish we had more of it. In fact, I wish we had more of it downtown. I wish we had more of it in our key compound or our key neighborhoods, our key arterial areas, not necessarily in neighborhoods, but I think it's a great concept. It reminds me of kind of that whole Bronx, Flatbush, apartments over that. But so in terms of the concept, I like, but the deviations they're asking for, to me, right now, seem like a pretty heavy lift, okay?
Thank you. Yeah, for sure.
So I have a question, Keith, with regards to the corner deviation.
These are the only ones that. These are the only ones I put in the presentation. I don't remember. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Sorry, Adam, I didn't put them in. I can. I wonder if I can find them real quick. Yeah, I didn't put those in. I apologize.
So, Keith, with regards to the corner setback, is the corner that you're looking at the one right on Germain and Val Vista, where they've got the 250 by 50 right on Val Vista, and then they're going shorter on Germain?
Right.
Okay.
That's what it is. I believe they're going to about 100 to 150 along Germain, if I'm not mistaken. But the width is still there.
Okay. And with regards to the setbacks, just kind of give me a little bit of schooling here. We're looking at from a 25 to a 15 along Val Vista. Is that in order to take up those two buildings on the northeast corner of the property, or is that the entire length of the property would be that deviation or setback?
Chairman Simon, that would be the entire length of the property along Val Vista.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Keith? Yeah, Commissioner Blazer.
So my overall take, I love that they're looking to develop the full 40 acres, and I love the concept. But I just echoing what's been shared, I would support staff's take on the deviations.
Yeah, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I really do like this. I like that the applicant has taken the time to put the residential above commercial. I think that's something we've talked about in a number of cases. I don't know, without knowing more about the actual uses and specific reasons for the necessity of those setbacks, just on the outset, it seems like they're trying to create more availability of changes within, I don't know that I really like doing setback reductions as well as green space reductions and all of that. But that being said, if there is a viable justification that maybe in the design we would see, that could be. One other possible issue that I would raise is that this is on the corner of a major street with a high school next to it and delicious Culver's and QT directly north of it. And I think that Commissioner Bianchi brought up the pedestrian transit through here. I think that's something that you may just want to think a little deeper about, because there's clearly going to be inordinate amounts of high schoolers traversing through this. And as we think about the reductions and all of that, not that that's part of the LDC, but it is something that is going to take place. And it's going to be a part of what this community will deal with in perpetuity. So, thank you.
Do I have the ability to ask the applicant a question at this point?
It's your meeting. You can do what you like.
I just want to make sure I'm not overstepping something I shouldn't. So, Mr. Bach, can you give us an idea of where you were going with this parking? Because and I guess I make an assumption with regards to the number, just from surely a residential perspective, high density perspective. But can you maybe give us some insight as to why you've got it pushed the way that you have?
Yeah. First of all, I think there's some work we need to do to revise this plan before it comes back to you. And that's the beauty of this study session, to hear that feedback. I think had you seen the imagery that's associated with this plan, you might have had a different reaction. When I look at the PAD zoning ordinance, it specifically says deviations are proper when you have unique developments. And this truly is a unique development. I think to staff's point, the deviation along the entirety of Val Vista probably needs to be revisited on our end. I believe we can probably move back some of our parking spaces and screen walls away from Val Vista. But I do know that the most northerly building, kind of at Melrose, is one that likely needs to stay in that location. So I can provide that deviation along the entirety of Val Vista, except for that one building right there. The reality is, downtown Gilbert's tremendously successful. It is a restaurant hub. We're trying to create a secondary point of activity in the town. And we know that brick and mortar is hard to survive in these type of economy, but we feel like if it's anchored with enough opportunities for retail and restaurant, based on the ratios that we expect to have restaurants, we feel like we need enough parking to accommodate it. I don't want people to say, I don't want to go there because there's no place for me to park. And so it's important for us to provide what we think is needed operationally, not what is required minimum code standards. At the end of the day, the deviations we're asking for aren't because we want to be greedy or max out the site. I think we want to just be responsive to the future intended uses here. I believe we can work together on the landscape setbacks. I believe we can work together on Val Vista. I think we can work together a little bit on the arterial intersection. I believe we can work together on improving the required amount of commercial open space requirements. There's probably room to do that. I see an opportunity here to create something special. And it's not often you get 40 acres to play with, but 40 acres of retail can be really, really tough. So providing that right mix is important. And so what we're trying to do is ask for just the right deviations to make it work. I think when we come back before you next time with amended changes and imagery that actually shows how this works, I think you'll feel much more comfortable with what we're proposing. And I hope that this will be something that staff can be supportive of.
All right, thank you. Before I kind of close this out, does anybody have any questions or comments at all? All right. Hang on 1 second.
Chair Simon, members
Yeah.
of the commission, we actually have that aerial, that imagery that at that building elevation that Adam was talking about.
Okay.
That rendering, if we'd like to show it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to look at it.
And I apologize, Adam, for not failing to put that in the presentation. So in this rendering that we're going to show you, it will show kind of the backside of that building. That's the only one that I think that we have in the file, Adam, is unless there was another one. I don't see it in our files, but it kind of shows the backside of the loft above building, or not loft above, but the interior space of maybe behind that loft above building, I think is what it shows. 8? Oh boy. Yeah, see, there's that one. I don't know if I have all those other ones.
That's the courtyard. When you drive in from the Val Vista side heading west, you terminate that courtyard. You see the level of activity that activates around that courtyard with the residential on the side of it. So these courtyard spaces serve as a reason to linger longer. We want to give our retailers hope that this site can be successful. And if this is some of the things that make it happen, that's what we want to provide. These aren't areas that you reap economic benefit from by providing, yet it helps make the center far more sustainable long-term. And we could see opportunities where in the weekend, maybe there's a food truck rally or some type of other special event because we have these types of spaces here. So think of like Santan Mall-ish. We have that Paseo in the different spots. We have 3 of those here on this plan.
And the rest of those, I'll have to make sure I put them in my next presentation. Sorry about that.
All right.
We'll have to touch base on those.
I look forward to, because whenever I see the renderings, usually there's the renderings of the building, and then the architects usually kind of cheat and put a mother, father, and a child with a puppy, and some really happy people high-fiving a policeman. And I noticed on some of yours, like the streets alongside, I think they just took the aerial photograph because there's like traffic barricades and junk that, and you could have taken those out of there and made it look a little. So I appreciate the honesty of the renderings.
Yeah, we are very close to bringing our DR in. I think we would have brought it in already, but once we saw the comments, we wanted to pause to hear your feedback today. So it won't be long until you see an actual supporting DR package to accompany this. So those white buildings don't really show well on a plan because it was pre-rendered, but you'll be impressed.
Excellent. All right, so Keith, I'll just kind of give you my final thoughts on this one. I think that the parking is a conversation that needs to be had, and maybe some alternatives to what that shade could look like, I guess, if you will. And I don't know how far the client is willing to go, or the applicant is willing to go. With regards to the setbacks, I probably wouldn't be so inclined to approve with the setbacks along Val Vista, because I understand we've already got some development. We want to keep that flow going. But along Melrose, I mean, it's a minor street. I don't know that having those garages right there is going to be that big of a deal. So some of the setbacks I'd probably be okay looking at. I love the concept. I love the loft above. I think that what the applicant is attempting to bring will do very good things for that area. So I'm excited to see this and additional renderings. I'm with Commissioner Fay. I like to visualize what it looks like, and so having that would be awesome. From there, I think it's the setbacks, and it sounds like you guys are going to work that out. The other piece that I am not sure about is going to be that back office behind the grocery store. It just kind of feels a little off to me. Understand there's availability for use there, but it's some struggling to get my head around. But I know that wasn't really in the question. But okay. So with that, Keith, did you get what you wanted?
I believe so. I believe so. Thank you very much for your time, and we are excited about the project.
Okay.
Just a few tweaks and things that need to take place, but we are excited about this project. We're supportive of the uses, but we have some things we need to work through. But thank you very much for your time tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, Keith. Yep. With that, we will go to Josh in the Orchard. GP 2111 and Z 2117.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. I will be very cognizant of the time, and I will not waste any time on this one. While Ashley's pulling it up, the Orchard is a proposed rezone and minor general plan amendment and pre-plat located along Greenfield Road, just south of Germain. There is a 14-acre piece of land. No, you're okay. That's long had access issues. It's remained undeveloped just because there's been multiple property owners within this area, and the applicant's coming in and hoping to develop 14 acres, which is approximately 4 single-family vacant lots right now, plus the orchard that you kind of see on the aerial as well. So just for requested input, what staff is requesting is input on the slight increase in density, the requested deviation for the zoning PAD, and then for the preliminary plat and open space, we're just looking for general feedback on your thoughts on the layout. Also about we have some questions and about enhancing the internal pedestrian circulation, and then as well as the presence of a gated community within the Santan character area. So the request that they're presenting today is to change the general plan from 0 to 1 dwelling units to an acre to 1 to 2 dwelling units an acre, and then a requested rezone from those single-family lots were SF43, and then the orchard currently is zoned SF35. Want to change those from to SF15 with a planned area development. Overall, staff's initial thoughts on the proposed general plan change in land use is that it does fit in with the character of the area. It's actually it meshes pretty well with what's currently there. You have 2 developments of single-family detached north of the site and north and west of the site. You have the White Wing residential community, which is SF10 directly east. So staff believes that the proposed land use and zoning change is compatible with the area. In terms of the deviation, the request is to modify the side setbacks of the homes. Right now, you're required to have 15 feet on both sides of the homes. Applicants requesting just to kind of divvy that length up a little bit and have 10 feet on one side and 20 feet on the other. Seeing that there's very minimal impact at best to the outside community, and it further is meant to enhance the local streetscape, staff is generally supportive of that. Residential input during the neighborhood meeting was generally adjacent homeowners didn't want to see more than 1-story homes on this land, but as with theirs, they are allowed it by right to have 2-story homes. They were also requesting a landscape buffer between the White Wing community and this one. The applicant let them know that we typically try to deter strips of landscape between the rear, between walls, and create a corridor of mischief. But the applicant has offered to increase the depth of the lots an additional 10 feet. So for the proposed development plan, it's for 22 lots, 2-story homes on 120 by 130 foot lots utilizing a private street network. There is only one access to the site through the north, which is to the right, through Superstition Drive. Ryan Road to the south is not actually a road. You cannot access that. That is owned by RWCD, and they don't want people driving on it, and which is also one of the reasons why this area has remained undeveloped for such a long time, is because there's been access issues. On the southern lot, I just want to point out that on the lot, on your screen to the left of lot 10, that is an unbuilt home that has remained half-built for about almost over a decade due to the inability to get utilities and access to the site. The applicant is proposing to include a connection and an easement to them to allow them access through the site to Superstition Drive to the north to allow that property finally the ability to continue the home. In regards to the open space, total open space is approximately a little over 20% of the site, or a little over 2.5 acres. They are incorporating a lot of the existing citrus trees from the orchard into the landscape plan, which we definitely appreciate. In terms of the open space and the rest of the wall plan, it is a gated entrance. It features an unoccupied guard shack, excuse me, with, of course, citrus trees lining the street. A centralized amenity area is located right at the entrance, including a ramada. It's a barn-themed ramada. You can see in your packet picnic benches, pickleball courts, so on. In first review, staff had requested the applicant remove the front gate, just because as this is a Santan character area where it doesn't explicitly say, no, you can't have a gated community in the Santan character area. The whole idea behind the Santan character area is to blend rural and suburban, kind of harken back to and keep the theme and feel of the agricultural community that Gilbert originally was, where, wide open spaces, not a lot of, brick block walls, so on and so forth. So we did request that of them. The applicant is vehemently against removing the gate. They definitely want to keep that there. I did include in the staff report their exact reasons why, but essentially they want to keep the gate due to the high-end nature of the homes, as well as the presence of other gated communities within the Santan character area, which staff has, we've tried recommending against gating those communities as well, but those recommendations weren't taken. Staff has also requested the applicant enhance the internal pedestrian network. They do have sidewalks right now, but keeping with our traditional, we like to have shaded walkways, even in residential communities as well as, in the commercial sites. So we requested a detached sidewalk with shaded trees separating the private road from the sidewalk, just to give a little more separation between traffic, which will be minimal, and pedestrians, excuse me. And the applicant is open to the idea. It's just that if they do offer that detached sidewalk with a tree-lined street, that will eat up the 10 feet extra depth that they've added into the lot. So just want to hear the commission's thoughts on what our preference is to whether to have the added depth or the shaded tree-lined street. And so just to recap, hey, not bad. Didn't do bad for time. Just to recap, just want to get the commission's input on the increase in density, which I didn't mention, but it is overall density is about 1.5 homes per acre. Want to get the commission's feedback on the side setback deviation, as well as the comments that I made on the preliminary plat and open space. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Questions or comments for Josh? Commissioner Bianchi.
Thanks, Chair. Just a real quick question, Josh. Just looking at the layout here and noticing that there's no connection to Ryan, does the drainage or the slope of this, does that all drain towards the basins, towards Superstition Road or Street? I mean, I don't know if that's just an entry feature or that's truly following the drainage pattern.
I believe it does. Engineer Nathan says that yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Questions or comments? Commissioner Anderson.
Just a question. The way with the site currently zoned, how many homes could they get on there?
Approximately, I believe it's 5 less than what is than 22, so about
okay. So
17, 18-ish.
All right. So the density increase is really 5. Okay, I think that's not a problem to me. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Fay.
Has fire signed off? The fire
Chairman
department.
Simon, Commissioner Fay, we are in the middle of the review. We just finished first review. In terms of dual access and requiring typically dual access, the fire department has made it clear that since there's a threshold of amount of homes that would require the dual access points, this is under that threshold, so they are generally okay with the single access point.
I'm surprised, but I'm pretty consistently surprised with the ease with which our fire department signs off on some of these, but they're the experts, so okay.
I was surprised as well.
Most of the things you're talking about to me is marketing, and as outrageous capitalist. I'm fine with them kind of doing. I don't think they're going to get quite as high as they think for some of that packing the houses in, but that's their business, and that's and I'm fine with the gate. The whole point of American society is once you claw your way to the ruling class, what's the point of being there if you can't join the oppressors and wall yourself off from the unwashed masses? That's kind of that's the American dream. That's what we aspire to. So
Fair enough.
I don't need any of your social justice nonsense. But in general, yes, I'm fine with gated communities. So I get staff maybe trying to go that direction, but I do recall Old Gilbert. I remember some of the big farmhouses. They had gates even just around. In fact, some of them had the arching driveways. Those farmhouses, they didn't even have a wall in front, but they had a gate at the driveways. Like you could just walk around it. But it was at least they're symbolically isolating themselves from the rest of us. So for what it's worth, I don't have a concern about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Fair. We were also talking internally, and maybe one of the staff's concerns was just interconnectivity and allowing free flow of neighborhood residents, just kids playing with each other. We would generally be acceptable of maybe keeping the pedestrian pathways open and ungated while also closing off vehicular. If they want to keep the vehicular gate, that would be something we would be open to, but just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, Vice Chair.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Well, for one of the first times in my career here on the Planning Commission, I'm almost speechless because of how eloquently Commissioner Fay articulated my own thoughts. Except for one thing, I don't really see a use in gates. I've always found it somewhat silly that any individual could just give out the code and then any Tom, Dick, and Harry can drive up and type in said code, and it's not really that sweet. Nonetheless, given the area that this is in, the surrounding area, as well as the close proximity to, I think it was White Wing that also has gates, I don't have a particular problem with that. I personally would like to see the sidewalks. I would imagine that people that would move here may have children, and it would be nice for them to have that. That's just my own opinion. Whether or not it would be a deal breaker, I don't know. I mean, that's another one of those where it would be their business. But personally, I think that it would be nice, even though it would, as you said, eat up that depth. I think having a covered walkway would be ideal, given, there's only the one entrance, ingress, egress. So you're going to be kind of milling about within the area if you're taking a walk. So thank you.
Commissioner Bianchi.
So my overall thoughts is I think the GP request, I think it seems reasonable. It's just a one-step increase. I'm happy to see that this went from an SF10 product to an SF15 product. I think it transitions well to the SFD to the west and to the north there, as well as to the SF10, I believe, just to the east there. I kind of agree with that the unmanned guard shack may be a bit much, but I completely will leave that up to the applicant. In regards, I understand the side setback request. I don't have any issues with that. And then I think, quite honestly, from my perspective, if it remains a 20 to 22 lot subdivision, I wouldn't hold them to the detached sidewalks, but I understand staff's request in asking that, but it wouldn't be for something that I would hold them to in such a small development. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? My 2 cents on this, I don't have a problem with the gate whatsoever. The sidewalks, initially I thought when I looked at this that there were not sidewalks. Understanding now that there are sidewalks, are just attached to the street, not detached. I feel like there is a way for the developer to potentially, and I don't know that the town can get involved in this, but where I live, we're required to have 2 trees in our front yard. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a way of getting around the attached, detached. I don't know how involved we can get with that. And I appreciate that they're going kind of above and beyond what they need to give access to that home that's sat vacant for 10 years or how long it is. So I think that that's commendable. So anyways, from there, I don't see any issue with this from my perspective. So
Thank you, Chair.
All right. Do you get everything you need, Josh? All right. Thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're going to adjourn for the moment the study session. We have 2 more items on the study session. We're going to take a quick 5. We'll come back. We'll do actually, you know what? We need to discuss our regular agenda. So we reset, sorry. I'll get my terminology down in about 4 years. So with that, so we've got on the regular agenda items, we have on the consent DR 21-31, the Marriott Town Place Suites, which is on the consent. On the non-consent, we have DR 21-138, which is a Chili's, and then Z 21-11, Bell Bank at Mercy Center. PAD, it looks like number 12 and number 13 are to be continued to April 6th. Unless there's any objection, I'd recommend that we move items 10 and 11 to consent. Does anybody want to hear those, or do we have any community members here to discuss those? All right, not seeing any. We'll move those up to the consent agenda. With that, we will recess for 5 minutes, come back, and we'll plow through that, and then back to study session.
I know, I'm like, where is that picture even? But I had 3 screens. I extended to all 3. No, but I was like, I don't think, no, not, I don't think there's a rash of, I know, I was like, I made a note. Did you? I know. I wasn't know. It's like, on the paper. He doesn't say. But he just said, zero purpose.
I would take my staff report and I would just highlight it.
Oh, really? I'm making notes and then mark my staff report, so I don't have to like dig through like square footages and acreages. I told Bert I want to kind of have this little thing we have for the whole PPA attachments for you, and you don't have an audience you were looking at, so you're kind of like, it was tough to time it. Yeah. So like, so that's the program visual word, so if it was wrong, I was like, so.
She wrote it in. It's in her notes.
So,
LOL.
But I feel like that because that is weird when you don't see your audience. Oh, thank you. That is weird when you can't see your audience. I like this normally you can play off of them. Like, you're like getting your little square. You got your little square that you sit on and you're like ready for story time. She tells you a little bit of wonderful
Bill stole him and we stole him back because he hated it there. We didn't even have to raise his salary, he just came in.
Okay, Eva, you think we're ready to go? Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and call the regular meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and so we discussed the agenda, and we discussed that we were going to go ahead and move agenda item 10, DR 21-1.
Chairman,
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I would love to call roll.
We may as well just train wreck this whole thing. Go ahead, Eva.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Here.
Commissioner Blazer?
Here.
Commissioner Bianchi?
Here.
Vice Chairman Mund?
Here.
Chairman Simon?
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for keeping me on the right spot in the agenda. All right. So we'll go ahead now with the approval of the agenda. So we discussed moving items 10, DR 21-138, the Chili's, and number 11, Z 21-11, Bell Bank to at Mercy Center PAD amendment or PAD amendment up to the consent which would leave 12 and 13 to be continued to April 6th. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I
Thank-
would make that motion.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Fay, we have a motion, and do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that, Chairman.
All right, Vice Chair Munt, we've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. With that, we'll jump to communications from citizens. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the town, but not on the agenda. The commission response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Do we have any communications from citizens? All right, seeing none, we will close the communications from citizens and go to the report from Council Liaison. Councilman September.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Kind of just a sad item for the first item. Commissioner Johns suffered a loss in his family last week, and so that's why he's not here this evening. And our thoughts and our prayers are with him and his family tonight. So please keep him in mind. And I also wanted to just take a quick moment and thank all of you for what you do here in serving Gilbert. Not everybody knows what a planning commissioner does, but it's not just reading a packet one night and then showing up at the hearing. We get our packets a week in advance. They're anywhere between 300 to 500, sometimes 600 pages long. There are questions that need to be asked of staff. There's questions and discussions with applicants. We make ourselves available for applicants. And it's a really long process each month. It isn't just one hearing, one night. And I think it's important that I say that and that everybody recognizes that effort, that time commitment that each one of you puts in. I want to thank your families for sharing your time with us, and I really appreciate it. That's all I have for updates. I just want to express my gratitude for all of you. I know a couple commissioners, Commissioner Munt and Chairman Simon, you guys started with me on the Planning Commission back in 2019, and Commissioner Anderson's been here much longer, I think, since they've had zoning. When Commissioner Fay started, his hair wasn't quite as gray, and I think Commissioner Munt probably had more hair. So I appreciate the effort, and I just want to thank you guys for coming in here every month and putting in the time. This is important. And I was talking to our planning director, and I asked Kyle, how are the building permit applications? Are they slowing down? He said, no, the pace is not slowed. So we're still busy here in Gilbert. There's still growth and development. We're approximately 10 years away from hitting our build out. So what we're dealing with now are a lot of infill projects. We don't really have huge takedowns available anymore like we used to. But these infills, even though they're smaller, they're just as important as the larger parcels that we used to deal with here in Planning Commission, because it's the last bit of resources that we have for land. So I appreciate all your efforts, and we had a very busy study session. We're going to continue the study session here in a moment, and these study session items are going to turn into hearing items in future planning commissions, and some of these are big projects. So appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Sorry, figuring out where I'm at here. All right, so the Planning Commission also acts as a design review board. We currently move with our consent items, and as previously agreed, we're moving item 10 and 11 up to consent. So I will entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman. As a matter of fact, I would like to make a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
All right, I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, I have a motion, a second, and do you need me to read those out?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I have a motion to approve. Oh, you want to redo your motion?
I was saying, do I need to clarify my motion?
Are we good?
I did just procedurally. Is the motion that I need to read it then, or can he just say it? The numbers. Maybe I'm looking
ahead
too
and
deeply.
clarify
into
your
this.
motion.
Okay, I'll just clarify it. My motion to approve the consent agenda includes items DR 21-31 Marriott Town Place Suites, DR 21-138 Chili's, and Z 21-11 Bell Bank at Mercy Center Pad Amendment.
All right, so I have a motion to approve consent agenda items. So I have a second.
Yes, I'll second.
Right, Commissioner Fay, we've got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And so non-consent public hearing items are heard at an individual public hearing and will be acted upon in the commission by a separate motion. During the public hearings, anyone wishing to comment on support, in support or in opposition to public hearing item may do so. If you wish to comment on a public hearing item, you must fill out a public comment form indicating the item number on which you wish to be heard. Once the hearing is closed, there will be no further comment unless requested by a member of the commission. So we open the non-consent agenda, which we have nothing on the non-consent, so we'll close it. And we will move on from there to our administrative items. Administrative items are for the commission discussion and action. It is to the discretion of the majority of the commission regarding public input requests of any administrative item. Persons wishing to speak on administrative items should complete a public comment form indicating the item number on which you wish to address. The commission may or may not accept public comment. And do we have any public comments this evening? Or any administrative items we need to address?
Public comments.
All right. The Planning Commission meetings from the February 2nd meeting, I will entertain a motion to approve or amend, if any.
Chairman, I would move to approve the minutes of February 2nd.
All right, I have a motion to approve the agenda items from February 2nd by Commissioner Bianchi. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Fay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. We have no executive session this evening, at least not that I'm aware of at this point. And then report from the chairman, members of the commission on current events. Anybody have any? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to announce a couple current events. Today is my wife and I's anniversary, and I have a daughter that's about to turn 16, so please pray for me. Thank you.
And you're here, you probably definitely need prayers.
That's why I'm putting that out there in case she's watching. I love you, honey.
Anybody else? No, I'll extend the prayers. If you're a praying sort, I would say that we all should pray for what's happening in Czechoslovakia right now, and try to be with our leaders and keep those people safe over there. So, Ukraine. What did I say? Czechoslovakia? Ukraine. I'm sorry. It's one of those nights, I guess. Anyways, at least I didn't say it. Right. All right. With that, report from the planning service manager on current events.
I'll just pass on it and
All right.
we'll
Thanks,
reconvene
Eva.
the work study session.
We're all over the place tonight. It just got really hot in here. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn our regular meeting, and we will pick back up with our study session on item 3, which is Keith, I believe. You're back up. If you want to take more beating tonight, Z21-14 Public Storage Edition and DR 21-175 Public Storage Edition.
Chair Simon, members of the commission, thank you. Yeah. I'm back for another round of beatings. Huh? So my next study session case, my last one of the night, is for the Public Storage Edition, for a zone change or a design review for the study session for these two items. So the site is located, as you can see on the map in front of you, at the northeast corner of Val Vista Drive and the Union Pacific Railroad, just south of Warner Road. The site is approximately 5.8 acres or so. So we'll go over that a little more in just a second. But the requested input tonight that I would like to get from you is on the proposed deviations, the overall design of the site, and the colors of the existing and the proposed building that I will show you. So The zoning exhibit, the site, like I said, is 5.8 acres. They are proposing to rezone the site from community commercial that has a PAD on it and is part of the Val Vista and Warner Crossroads Center master plan. They're proposing to change that zoning to general commercial with a planned area development. The proposed development and plan and site plan, which are in front of you, it's basically the same document as of right now. So on the site, you can see that there are the south half of the building, the south half of the site has 5 existing storage buildings on them. The northernmost building is a 2-story building that actually has about 15,000 square feet of storage on the ground floor right now. And then the rest of the remainder of the building, which is about, I think it's about a 30,000 square foot building, has a call center on the top. So that call center on the 2nd story will be removed and it will be remodeled and replaced with storage units, about 16,000 square feet of storage. Approx total storage as of right now on the site's about 62,000 square feet. Now, then their applicant's also proposing to the north of those existing storage buildings on the side, as you can see in front of you in that kind of that hatched L-shaped building. They are proposing about 143,000 square foot new storage building. Oop, I got some text cut off there. I apologize. A new storage building about that size, about 143,000 square feet. So total numbers, storage numbers, when it's all said and done, is going to be about 222,000 square feet of storage. Now, I do want to note that in your staff report, I jumbled up all the numbers and messed it all up. So I don't have all the accurate information from the applicant yet on totals. I'm still trying to secure that. So, but I messed up some of the totals, so I apologize. So my next staff report, it will all be correct, I promise. I just want to at least note that I kind of messed up the numbers, just in case some of you are like, I'm going to question Keith on this later. So I do recognize that, and these are the correct numbers that I have as of right now. And in addition to those storage building, that storage building to the north, which is going to, currently today, there is a above ground RV storage on that portion of the property. That will be obviously removed and replaced with this brand new storage building, which is about 36 feet in height. And I will show you the elevations of that in just a second. On the site, there are 31 parking spaces that are proposed, 23 of those parking spaces, which a majority of them are along Val Vista Drive and kind of right there at the entrance of the 2-story building, which is the building to the south of the new building. Those are all existing and will remain. So the only new parking spaces are going to be those parking spaces that are on the south side of the new storage building, and then some like loading bays and stuff on the back side of the building on the far east side of the building. Everything else will remain as existing today. And all the drive aisles will remain as existing except for the new one surround the building, which is for fire purposes. But all the drive aisles in between all the existing buildings, everything will stay the same as it is today. So as far as the deviations that are proposed by the applicant, please note that this site was approved with light industrial zoning under the ULDC. It was actually approved in like 1997 for industrial zoning. And then in 2005, when the town adopted the LDC that was just recently amended in 2005, they changed the zoning to community commercial, which actually has more restrictive setbacks. So it rendered those setbacks that were approved under industrial zoning, 0 foot on the east side and things like that, and a really small setback along the south side along the railroad tracks, it made those setbacks non-conforming setbacks. So with this proposed PAD and deviations, the applicant is proposing to bring all those non-conforming development standards basically into compliance with the PAD. So that's why you see some of these weird, funky deviations, like 4 foot 8 inches along the southern boundary where the buildings are, and then along the southern boundary as well, along that side street, you'll see 1 foot 8 inches because there's a wall that encroaches into that setback a little bit. So, and then along the eastern boundary, it's 0. That building is literally on the property line, which is right next door to a power plant. So town staff is in support of all of these deviations, and we know and understand why they are the way they are. but we want to bring this site back into conformance and not be illegal non-conforming any longer. And you'll also notice that the top one, maximum building height, is 36 feet. Town staff would like to restrict that building height to 36 feet instead of it being potentially 45 feet in the near future. So that's all the deviations. The landscape plan is they have 15.4% landscaping on the site. So they're going to refresh the landscaping along Val Vista Drive because it's kind of, a lot of stuff has died over the years and Palo Verde trees have probably been blown over. And so they're going to refresh all of that. And then they're also going to add new landscaping around the new building in certain spots and certain areas where they actually can do that. And then the proposed elevations. This is the elevation of the existing two-story building, which today the design looks a little bit different. You'll see, if you've driven by it and looked at it, you'll notice that the entrance of that building has kind of like a lighthouse type design. They're going to remove the lighthouse design, and they're going to propose the design on that top west elevation, a little bit more contemporary design. And then around the building, they'll add some more paint, and then they're going to add some orange at the cornices and things like that. And you'll notice if you go out there today, they've already kind of painted it. So I don't know if they're going to be modifying the buildings that they've painted prematurely now to what this is, or if they're going to modify the drawings to what's painted. I'm not quite sure yet. It's still early on in the process. But that's the existing building. The new building that they're proposing is, like I said, it's about 36 feet tall to the top of the parapet. And they're adding, and the building complements to a certain extent the design of the existing building, but we have asked the applicant to make it complement a little bit more. The cornices, some of the finishes on the side and things like that. We've asked them to kind of complement it, that other building just a little bit more, and I'm confident that we can get there. But the one concern that we do have with these elevations that I believe we noted in our staff report is that we feel that there's a little bit too much orange on this building. Especially around that main entrance. So we have asked the applicant to kind of dial back or dial down the orange a little bit, which is a corporate color. And we're confident that we can come to an agreement with them on that. So that's a concern that we have. And I'd like your input on that, by the way. So those are the new addition elevations. So here's the color materials board, orange. I think that's orange, that color. I have to turn my head. So you see kind of two different orange hues there, but it's supposed to be probably the one on the top right is what I would imagine. And then you have some block and some stucco. So the building is pretty consistent with the new building is pretty consistent with the old building in colors and materials. We just need some things to be rearranged a little bit on the building and adding materials in certain spots to complement the other building. So that concludes my presentation. So the requested input, the elevations and articulation of the building, and the revised site design. I would love to get your thoughts. Thank you very much. Right. I can show you what they have it painted as today. Here it is. So we're still working with them on that a little bit. So anyways, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Keith. Comments or questions for Keith? Commissioner Anderson.
Keith, thank you for the presentation. What's staff's thoughts on the elevations, in particular the east, north, and south? They just seem like really flat, long runs. And in the past, for as long as I've been involved with, design review board and planning commission, that's always been a sticking point for staff. They don't like to see that type of stuff. They want to see some sort of vertical elements breaking it up, or horizontal projections back and forth. So what's your take on those elevations?
So as far as the east elevation, I don't know how concerned we are with the east elevation, given the fact that it faces an industrial zoning district and it's a power plant. Nobody's ever going to really go back there except customers. But so we're not super concerned about that elevation. The elevation that faces the west, which is along the street frontage, you can see it from Val Vista. That's one that we have a little concern with. We do feel like maybe there could be some more vertical elements and things, but we would like it to complement the other building, the buildings to the south that are existing. So maybe a few little tweaks as far as vertical elements could be implemented. I don't think that would be a bad idea. But if you notice on the site plan, if I can get back to it. Oh, that's the wrong direction. I apologize. So you notice, well, I'll show you the prettier one. So you see that the building itself is an L shape. So you have a lot of of horizontal movement in the building because of the L shape, but not necessarily allow the vertical movement. But maybe there are some opportunities to add a little more vertical movement in varying parapet wall heights and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, it's more. I guess what I'm focusing on is more the north and south elevations. There's just the long flat runs, and in the past, the town has always pushed for four-sided architecture and having some sort of architectural embellishments to break up those types of planes. So if that's still staff's kind of thinking these days, I would strongly support that.
Chair Simon, Commissioner Anderson, it is still our thinking. And so see that this is the existing building on the north. See how it has those varying heights of parapet walls and things like that and some vertical movement? I believe that could be accomplished on the north and the south elevations like you're talking about on the new building. So yes, I would agree that that's probably something that's a good idea to do. And then that goes along with complementing that building. So we would like the applicant to take a look at doing that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Questions or comments for Keith? Commissioner Blazer.
So when you drive by this, you can hardly see it where it exists. So I think it's going to tuck back really nicely and hardly going to see it because it's L-shaped and it wraps around the retail a building adjacent to it. I think is at the Big Five there, but yeah. So I would be in full support. And if the elevations need to be changed up, I'd support that. I'm a fan of reducing the orange. You asked for input on that. I think when we approved the public storage in South Gilbert on Val Vista, we said no orange on one of the elevations, and they accommodated it. So maybe the same amount of orange that's on the existing building adjacent to it, I could live with. So.
Okay.
So with this being a storage facility, has U-Haul have any disagreements with this orange on these types of buildings? I mean, it seems like.
I was wondering if that's why all these facilities.
Yeah, because most of these larger companies, they get a certain color that they're associated with. They trademark that thing. So I was surprised. Like I zoomed in and just said public storage, and I thought this was a U-Haul at one point because of all the orange, but it doesn't look to be. So that was just a curious question.
Chair Simon, Commissioner Anderson, I don't know. It's a good question. That'd be a good question for the applicant's representative. I have no clue on that one, to be honest with you. It's a good question.
Would you like to
Very good
comment?
question.
Should we get a mic down to that side of the room?
No rapping here. No worries there. Please repeat the question. You were asking regarding the orange and it being a trademark color.
Yeah,
right?
if it's a trademark color, if it's corporate color, if it has something to do.
It's a trademark. It's an identifier that is necessary and for this kind of project where it's tucked up against the railroad track and has huge setbacks and so forth. But it's something that is used in other places. Each site, of course, is unique. It has its own characteristics in there.
It died.
Any other questions for the applicant while he's got the dead mic?
Yeah, well, I do actually.
Yeah, Commissioner Fay.
For the most part, I think this one's mindlessly easy. You've got a project that's wedged in between a power plant, a UPRR, and up behind the garbage bins of the industrial. Other than a little wedge out on Val Vista, this whole thing is. I'm applaud anyone doing anything back there. I read something about RV storage, which would not be a building, and would that cut into the parking spaces, or is there still an intent to have RV storage at all, or is that? I remember reading that, and it's not a concern. It just doesn't seem to be on there.
Chair, Commissioner Fay, the current existing RV storage would not be incorporated in this plan. It will be replaced with that building.
Okay, so what I read is that's what's back there now, and we're getting rid of it.
Exactly.
Okay, I misremembered that.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
By the way, two thumbs up if that wasn't clear from.
Okay. Vice Chair Munt.
Yeah, I also agree. I think that getting anything tucked into here by a peaker plant and a railroad track, the colors, it would be nice, but also I don't know that it's going to be that big of an issue. I drive by this quite a bit, and I wouldn't be able to notice it. But the one thing on the articulations, that the existing building does have a significant amount of undulations on the elevation, and and it's actually on the east elevation, which faces the power plant, which is interesting. But nonetheless, just for continuity purposes, it might not be a bad idea to continue that. But at the same time, I do also note that it'll be very hard to notice any major aesthetics on this. So I'm in favor of it.
All right, Commissioner Bianchi.
Yeah, I would echo a lot what's been said. I think the design and materials look to be pretty consistent, compatible with what the current use is. I kind of agree with Commissioner Anderson's first question and his concern. I appreciate that the 3-story storage has minimal frontage to Val Vista. It's kind of positioned to the rear of the site, as was previously mentioned. I'd like to ensure that some of the landscaping, especially with height, maybe gets included to shield the massing of that massive 3-story building, but looks like they're kind of doing that. I'm just wondering if we can get some height with that. And then regards to the setback modifications, thank you for clarifying that, because if it's just bringing it into current compliance, I have no issues with it. Thank you.
All right. My comment, I agree. I feel like the orange might be a little bit too much, but as a corporate color, I understand the need for it, I guess, if you will, but maybe tone it down a bit if you can. And then I would agree with Commissioner Anderson that I feel like we need to stick with, if we're gonna have a stance, I guess, if you will, on undulation and articulation in buildings, we should probably keep true to that. And I like looking at what's existing and tying this in there so it looks like it's all one big development. So, all right, Keith, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate your input.
All right, we'll go to our last agenda item for the evening. Josh, you've got GP 22-01. I'll let you say it because I can't remember how you told me to say it. And Z 22-01.
I actually chatted with the owner during the break just to ensure
make sure you were saying it correctly.
Cesare Design.
Cesare.
Right? Yeah. Good. All right. All right. GP 2201 Z 2201. De Cesare Design. It's a proposed rezone and minor general plan amendment for about 2.5 acres. This is mid-block between Baseline and Guadalupe on Greenfield Road. It was developed as a church in the county. It annexed into the town, and churches are allowed as non-residential uses in residential zoning districts. So it stayed the residential zoning district. It was a single family 43. And the applicant's requesting to change that. The church is no longer using that building, and they would like to repurpose that into a design studio. So they're requesting to change the general plan and zoning to neighborhood office, which is, in staff's opinion, a very compatible use for a mid-block small type of parcel like this. It's against major arterial. And as for the allowable uses, there was some concern in the neighborhood meeting regarding, if this applicant, if their business moves elsewhere in the future, what other types of things could come in here. They had particular concerns regarding like an urgent care, which would be allowed in a neighborhood office, but still, in staff's opinion, that is typically a very low traffic type of use. And even if that was the worst case scenario, that would still, in staff's opinion, be fine for this site. Also, other types of businesses that could go in here, which would be like a brewery or a distillery, which in my opinion wouldn't be too bad either. Also, just other small types of office uses, not very high in, traffic. There's the existing structure that's on site that they tend to make minimal, if any, changes to. There are not any site design issues. The current site plan, which you see was approved, I think it was mid-90s or late 90s. Or I'm sorry, 2008. It is in compliance with the requested zoning district. So just in closing, just wanted to hear the commission's thoughts on the general plan and rezone change because it's going from residential to commercial. No concerns on staff end, but we definitely would like to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
All right, questions or comments? Yeah, Commissioner Bianchi.
Chair, Josh, a couple quick questions. Given the use, I'm just assuming this will just have normal business hours of business operation, kind of daytime, early evening. And then,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Yes.
And this will be just a design and administrative office, correct? It's not going to be no construction materials or delivery or storage on site?
No, not that I believe. I don't believe the storage of materials in this zoning district would be allowed, outside at least. And just even, which I don't believe it is, but even if it would have to be within an enclosed yard,
Okay.
which there's no space on here. And if that were to happen, that would have to come in for design review and for full staff review if they want to do something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great, especially adjacent to all the residential on each side. I think it's a great reuse. And the other important thing is there's no deviations being requested. So what a welcome change.
It's amazing.
So, but other than that, yeah, I've got no initial issues with the
Amazing
request.
coming from Willie Morris. Is that what you were saying? Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Blazer.
I thought at one point there was shared parking with the facility adjacent to that. Is that still in place?
Yes, it is.
It would carry over. Okay.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Just curious. I think I like it. I like the repurpose. So I think it's good.
I have a quick question. What, and this is probably more from an educational perspective, what would be the difference between approving a conditional use permit for this versus actually changing the zoning of it to protect the potential of getting into a situation down the road where we have somebody like a brewery wanting to go in here and the neighbors having an issue as they did when the previous tenant of the property across the street had that?
Good question. Hadn't thought about that beforehand.
I can answer it.
Oh, Mr. Ball.
The NO really is very restrictive. There's only like a couple of things you can do. It's like the brewery or example or anything like that. It can't occur. You can have office and office. And so the truth of the matter is I don't think the land use really amplifies that much beyond what the design studio is proposing. Maybe it's a photography studio or a eye doctor's office, maybe. I don't know. But the office limitations are just so restrictive. It doesn't really open up for much more than that.
Okay, thanks.
Chairman, I was actually mistaken. I was looking up the potential use of beforehand. A brewery would not actually be able to go here. I just misread the column. So yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the previous
no.
tenant and what they went through trying to get a liquor license.
It is a very, as Adam said, it is a very restrictive zoning district meant for close proximity and small uses, close proximity to residential and small uses. So very restrictive.
But it is still a good question. I mean, some of the concerns about an urgent care or an eye doctor, which I don't know who's against eye doctors, right? But all of that would be off the table if we were talking about a conditional use permit versus a rezoning. Rezoning creates other uses of right. A conditional use permit, I don't believe, does. So a conditional use permit would literally be here, existing zoning and permitted for this additional use. Is that a fair restatement? So it would remove the potential criticism of the neighbors of what other speculative uses might come in there. Is that not a fair way of looking at it?
Commissioners, hold on. I'm looking through the code, just seeing if that was that's even a possibility to do a conditional use permit.
Okay. And it may not be. I just didn't know, and it popped into my head. So I may have opened a can of worms that didn't need to be open.
I don't know if that's a permitted use within that. Is it a residential district?
Yeah, it's a single family 43 right now. I'm trying to.
And a design studio would not be a potential permitted use? Is that the problem?
Correct. Can't. But that would have been easier for us because the CP is certainly way easier than a rezone. But
right, I'm surprised that's not a permitted use. I guess.
Chairman, in SF 43 zoning district, which is what this currently is, you're not allowed that. You're not allowed to do a use permit. It's just not allowed.
Oh, you're not allowed to do use permits
just an
in Gilbert
office.
at all?
Not at
No,
all.
no, just for that use in this zoning district.
That use, okay.
It's just use permit's not an option.
Okay.
Well, never mind then. You're
Yeah.
right.
Well, any other comments or questions for Yeah.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say that I think this is a great use, and I very much like the renderings of the guy on a cell phone in the second story and the other one walking with a child with what appears to be a small toy, somewhat blurry. It looks like there's going to be some very nice activity on site, and I like the barn look, so well done.
All right, and I am good with it as long as they don't come back asking for a liquor license later on down the road. I would be. No, I'm just kidding. So no, I'm totally good with it. I think it's a great use for the property, and I have no problem with the rezone or the general plan amendment. So at this point,
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you.
thank you. All right, with that, I think we're done. So we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting for this evening. Thank you all. We will see you again next month.
Thank you.
April Fool's Day, right? No, I don't know what.
Just kidding.